let's get started. So today I'm here to talk about like the hiring offer of Meeting C++, right? So hello to everyone in the chat and on LinkedIn and later on YouTube. So are you hiring for C++ is the question, right? This is also the target audience kind of defined with that. Let me go into my slides and then we can start. So I am looking for employers for the job fair in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, actually, we'll be sitting here in Hubilo and having the job fair live. And I would like to announce which employers are at the job fair, but that's kind of, this is not the case at the moment. I'm still looking for employers to join, and I see that some companies may be interested from what I see, but I have not yet seen signups from companies. So I guess the next 2 weeks will be where this happens. So this has often been the case. This is just normal. But if you are hiring right now and you're looking for a good way to connect to the C++ community, the Meeting C++ online job fair is the perfect place for you to present your company. And on the first day, we're going to be at 3 p.m. Berlin time, Middle European time, for 3 hours live. And on the second day, we'll be at 8 p.m. live for, again, 2 to 3 hours to cover kind of, all time zones. And we've been doing this now for quite some time, since 2021. And last year's result I recently posted to the blog. 225 candidates actually submitted, unique candidates submitted over the CV sharing form for Meeting C++ last year into this. And there's some data on it which I'll present later in this. And for years I've been hearing that C++ devs are hard to find, but one thing I can say, this has changed in 2023. There's a lot less interest in hiring now, and there's seems to be mostly companies still looking, but they're looking with less effort and more in the traditional ways, what they do for other things, and more like where they look for all their jobs. They also get their C++ fix, but they are not doing something extra. And for some companies that might be the right strategy, but I think there's some companies out there which actually should do something extra and should be present at a job fair for C++ to specifically be able to get a feeling what devs are on the market and what people you can talk to for C++. And to kind of see how things are going in this direction, I did a survey, and these are from last year, from April and August. And the question basically is, your employer is currently hiring for C++, not hiring for C++, and letting C++ folks go. And there we see it's like last year's numbers. It seemed to be getting a bit better in August than it was in April last year. And if I look at the numbers of this year, it's like not as good as in April last year. And I wonder kind of, is this like a seasonal thing, and kind of have to get a bit more data on it. And I'm looking forward to have this question probably be again a survey in April to see if that changes. But for the moment, we seem to have still majority of companies are hiring, but it's not over 50%. And a third of companies is roughly not hiring, and 20% are still, downsizing and restructuring. And I also do ask this question on LinkedIn. So April, August, we see that's of course, on LinkedIn, there's always a bit more hiring and firing. And that's the general trend. And if you look at this year, it's very close to what Twitter had is also on LinkedIn this time. So these are very close, much closer than they were in the past year. And so generally, about 47% are currently hiring. Not hiring is like about a third, and about 20% is right now in the way that, there's various reasons for the amount of people being let go. Financing has become a lot harder for startups. So a lot of startups go down or just, restructure and have to, conserve their trying to, not end the startup, but keep going. So they set people free. We've had the big hiring and firing spree, especially. The big tech companies hired a lot of people to basically stock them and to not make them available to the market and the competition. And that ended last year, and a lot of those people were set free. And there is not yet like that the market has all, bounced back and rehired those people. That's my impression right now. So if you're looking for C++ developers, now's the time to really hire very good talent. And let me quickly read chat. I see a lot of people in the chat. Thank you for coming. And so if you have any questions, just post it into the chat. But I think I will continue in a second with a talk and then present mostly on the data I have from last year. All right, let's carry on. So my offer from Meeting C++ is through the online user group, which was a reaction to the pandemic, and this exists now for soon as 4 years. And from the beginning, I thought something like a job fair would make sense. And so the whole concept was making a really, really a good introduction in 2021. And since then, we've hosted like a few events of that, like 4 to 5 events per year. This year I can host one in March and in April. Usually April is bad because of Easter, but Easter is like right on the border of March and April this year. So that in late April, we have a long away lead before people are returning from their holidays and going into holidays again after April, right? May is a big holiday time in Germany in June and some other months anyways. So the plan to run those job fairs is March, April, late September, maybe beginning of October, and then end of November to close the year. And that has played out fairly well in the recent years. The concept itself is you have your table and people join it and you talk about your company, what you do with C++, what your open positions are, what you think about candidates, what they should learn or what they should have, etc., etc. And on the other hand, companies are sitting on their tables and candidates join them on their table, and candidates, of course, also ask the same questions, like, what do you do with C++? How do you hire? What do you hire? And etc. And if it's a match, then an interview is not at the event. Okay, just want to clarify this is not an interview event. It's more like a fair where people come and go, and you get to meet a lot of people. Again, the times in the afternoon for Europe on the first day, 3 o'clock, and 8 o'clock in the evening on the second day. That's A, to cover the time zones better, and B, to the evening job fair is not as popular in Europe as the recruiters because they like to, attend in working hours. But when we have companies able to staff that in the evening in Europe, and the European companies or American companies or other companies from time zones where that makes sense, we do have very, very interesting folks come also in the evening when they are off work because they can't come during work. So this is a very good thing. And then there is the CV sharing form, which captures all those folks, and these are the majority in here, which are not able to come to either date, right? There's always like it doesn't matter how many job fairs you make, you never capture the whole audience with it. So they are captured through the CV sharing form. They can just, upload their CV, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about. But let's talk a bit more about the event. So the event starts with a kickoff where I, talk to the event and LinkedIn to get a bit more folks into the event, because those can also be quite interesting, like people joining, seeing it by random chance, and having an interview and getting a job. That's always a good story too. And so the other goal behind it is just simply to explain the event to the audience and to get a better retention to come to the launch. And if you're hiring and you want your own live stream, like only the audience should only be on company X of your Y, company Y, of your choosing, then and you want to cover like what you do, maybe you're a trading company, maybe you're an automotive company, maybe you're an embedded company, and you want to specialize on that and say this is a topic of the stream, then I can do your own live stream, and you also can sponsor a user group meeting, which then also is online. But let's talk a bit more about the CV sharing form. It's always online, and the job fair sponsorship gives you 6 months of listing. So even when you do not find your candidates during the job fair, you still get a lot of companies to have received candidates, and so your chances to get them within the next month. And this is very successful. This has helped a lot of companies hire very good people. This is how the first page of the form looks. It allows candidates to share their CV with the sponsors and also to enter an optional 6 months listing. I do have a candidate listing, which is visible to the sponsors of the event. And so if you're joining the event, you automatically have, like right now it's 76 folks which have their CVs listed there for 6 months. And of course, after 6 months, so they drop out of this number, kind of, bounces often up and down every day a little bit. And so this creates a light profile of where they're coming from, where they want to work, how they want to work, their C++ skills, field of work, and the years of experience. And let's have a bit of a look into that. For the candidate listing, I have this overview over regions where we see that the submissions currently come from Europe and Asia mostly, a little bit of North America, a little bit of Africa, and a little bit of South America. But this changes all the time, and Europe and Asia is just where I have the biggest reach. And also just North American companies have not that often joined, so that's not as popular and not as well known in this time zone. These are the skills from those candidates, and this is basically to tell the recruiter and also to give us a bit of data on what you're kind of looking for, to have employers know as your skill set. So generally C++ 14, Linux 11, 17, modern C++ object orientation, and CMake are the top 7. The ordering is changing, and there's some trends. For a very long time, it was C++ 11 on top. Now it is mostly Linux. If I go into the other data, we'll see that. And here it's now 14, but it's just, so small a margin. And then you have a lot of other skills where people are, skilled in. And I also do ask, like, what's your background in the industry? Which fields have you worked in? Here, the big change now is for me that embedded is on top. And usually for the last years, it has always been desktop. I think it has something to do with automotive making it to the 3rd place, because automotive devs are also embedded devs mostly. And then there's finance, industry, robotics, image processing, and so on. It's a big mix of backgrounds and people. Science University, of course, covers often the education. Some people work for finance, some people work for HPC, and so on. And when we look at the data for 2023, 225 candidates from 52 countries. And country-wise, I do have a bit of a chicken and egg problem. When I do not have employers from a country, I have less candidates. And if I can advertise like for a certain country and an employer, it usually helps with retention from that country. First place here for countries has always been India. And Germany and United States usually are close to, be second or third. And then comes just the selection of countries from Asia and Europe, and it always kind of differentiates how this mix comes together. Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, Brazil, Netherlands, and Poland they are currently like in the leading group. And this year will be again a bit different. This is kind of fluctuating. The skills for last year, and here it's like the top 7 this time. The ordering is Linux, C++ 11, 14, 17, CMake, object orientation, and modern C++. And if we go around 90 folks choosing something that is like 50%. So Make is above that, Boost, Qt, and functional programming is around it. And C++ 20 is not there yet, but I guess within this year it could rise to it. Becomes more popular, it also becomes more available with compilers, going down the chain of deployment slowly. And then there's just the specialties, and package managers, unfortunately, are still rather a rare choice. Fields of work for last year also, it's, as I said, desktop is on the first place. Embedded and automotive now are second and third, and if automotive stays around like that, then probably embedded will become the first place. And server, finance, other image processing, and so on. And one thing I'm wondering is like AI is not like really a space where top C++ is the top lead, but it plays such a role in our future, I guess, that we'll see like either like if the hype resolves into nothingness and we all find out that AI is not yet ready for the market, as certain things are looking in that way, or if we're getting used to using assistants which are AI and cloud powered. So that's like something where I look into for this year. It's like, is this like a field which finds more people with a background in our community or not? And I wanted a way to compare those numbers with the overall community. And this is still a work in progress, but I do actually have the perfect tool for this with the Meeting C++ community survey, which is a survey tool. And just as a caveat, this is a different data set, and context different matter. So take this with a grain of salt, but interestingly, at least currently, the data is fairly similar. If we take a look here at the C++ skills in the community, we see that 11, 14, and 17 as a C++ standards is on top. It's not very surprising. Linux is then with modern C++ on the 4th and 5th place, and CMake is already like, it's then CMake, Linux, CMake, and then modern C++. The top 6 hold up. From the top 7, we have object orientation, and that does not hold up. And I feel like makes a difference when people are wanting to be hired, then object orientation is more important than when with a general community. Interestingly, more people have chosen C++ 98, which is around 200, and object orientation should be like at 185, I'd say, maybe 180. And if we generally look at the top 5 skills, it's sorted a little bit different. I think this is a reflection on that people in a job search are more comfortable to choose something they're really comfortable with, and C++ 17 might be for some still too new, or they want to, or they assume that someone who uses C++ 17 also uses 14 and 11, and that is covered for them. Which, that's like, I think the main difference between those data sources is that people employ different strategies and have a different impression of what is important for them to choose in this form. And for the job search form, definitely, it's also that we do have people maximize that so that they choose a lot of things they know about, like what I'm interested in, and other people like what I'm really good in, and they're like just a few ones, just 3 or 5, and others choose like a lot, which might also reflect on your career status. And so I don't want to limit this to 5 or tell people how much they should choose, but this makes a difference. Fields of work is fairly similar. Desktop is on top, closely followed by embedded. Big difference is that the third number here is industry, and then it's automotive, image processing, and server, which are the fourth place shared together, and then everyone else. AI is like more like in the not so often chosen ranks here, interestingly. So this could be an interesting difference to the job searchers. Maybe that becomes important for them to choose AI in the future, because not all of those will be chosen for truth. But we'll see. And if you look at and compare these, we see that industry is a big difference, but it's not really mattering that much. And then automotive, image processing, server. But I think this is also like really a reflection on what companies we have at the job fair. If we have a lot of gaming companies, we have more gaming devs coming to the job fair, and hence this will be stronger in the data. And otherwise it will not be as strong in the data, of course. And same for finance. If we don't have finance companies, finance field will not show up as strong. And then maybe we had companies with a lot of embedded background in the past, and so embedded has become stronger right now. I'm also asking for years of experience, and here it's kind of like these are always the same looking graphs. Roughly like 2/3, 60% until 10 years, like people which are either juniors or just have become seniors. And then for last year, this goes up to 33 years in the industry, which is like really senior, right? And so that's something that is like, just interesting to see that there's a lot of folks which are joining the industry and they're looking for their first or second job. And then all the other folks which just, are looking for their next gig. And this basically is a CV sharing form. It allows candidates to share a light profile, and then this gets shared with employers which sponsor the event. And on the second step of this, of course, is for the candidate to select the companies they want to share with, okay? I want to stress that as a company, as an employer you're attending, but you're only receiving CVs from candidates that are actually interested in you, right? Candidates have the choice to also be listed in the candidate listing, so you can look into the candidate listing and look if there's candidates which you find interesting as an employer. But the active notification that a candidate has chosen you is always the meaning that they've, clicked the box for your company. And in this step also they upload the CV in the resume, and not everyone, but most people add a general cover letter. And if you look at the general data of the history now, last year we had with 100 candidates in March submitting a record, 4 companies attending back then. And then kind of the interest in hiring during summer naturally went away. So last year we probably had the last job fair in June until companies really demand this again, because just companies seem not to be interested to attend these events in holiday times. September, we had Linde, which is still in the form. Great company, great employer, but we had from the execution, it was like a late sign up, so it was a bit difficult. So this is the new low. And then this went up again, and Linde still, got all those candidates from the second meeting, which was like 69. So the average of 60 candidates with each event is still true. And if you join one job fair as a company, you will also receive more candidates after you're attending. And mostly when we do like for a year, that means you're getting the candidates from the next job fair too. And as I mentioned, attending companies and early sign-up influences how many candidates are coming and what kind of candidates are attracted. The event consists out of sponsored tables where companies, send their staff to, and they have their logos listed with a link to their recruiting platforms in the CV resume sharing form on the website in the job section. I can introduce them in the live streaming. They have access to the recruiting tooling. I'll talk about that in a minute. It enables me to advertise with your logo to say, hey, company Y is coming, and you probably want to come and meet them. And it drives and guides the tooling. I do have free tables which are basically just letting you have a table at the event as an employer. You're listed below the sponsored tables. It's mainly for getting a feel for the event format. I kind of have to limit it to 2 visits. You get a smaller table, and this is for also like some people want to join and then they don't get the funds soon enough. It's like 2 weeks now, and in some companies it takes like 4 weeks to acquire something like that in billing. So either then join the next job fair or join this one and then use the budget to join the next one too. And quickly explaining what a table is. This is a virtual lounge, and people sit on a virtual table with 8, 4, or 2 seats. Everyone is able to join by clicking on a seat. Once 2 folks sit, a meeting starts, and meetings kind of have their own UI. So once you're in a meeting, you will not see the lounge again, but everyone from the outside is still able to join your meeting as long as there's a free seat on your table. These meetings are limited by 1 hour, which is a feature by Hubilo, and then basically candidates should go to the next table, or they're free to leave your table if they're not interested anyways. After the amount of time they spent there, that's up to them. And recruiters then simply should join the table again. The recruiting tooling is basic overview which candidates have submitted to you. You can read their message, open their CV, which you also receive per email. you get the statistics I showed you for your company specifically. So this probably helps you with internal presentations and helps you to say this is what we spent the money on and so many candidates we had, this is the skills they had, and this can be very interesting data for your teams. I do have a search form because we do have a lot of candidates submitting. The one event had 100 candidates submit, and that can be too much to keep an overview. And maybe you have multiple roles. Maybe you want to have, you have this one role was Qt, and then you want to search for a candidate in your submissions that knows Qt, and maybe you also have some other interface where you need to have still legacy interface where you need to have Boost, or a job where you need Boost on the server or MFC in the legacy, and so on. You can just choose the profile if there's if that's the need. And there's also a text search to cover the cover letters, and the cover letters kind of also have this data pasted into it. So you can search for that also in the text search. And that basically is a job fair. It's a long-time project. We're doing it now for 3+ years. It's a success, but it needs really, and it hangs on the employer support from companies. And early signups help a lot more for the community to know who is coming to the event. And we always learn with dates how to deal with it and how to improve the event. And let me quickly read chat. I see there's some questions. Well, here's an interesting question. Is there some data indicating continents as well as industries like fintech, automotive that hire more C++ engineers? As most of my candidates come from Asia and Europe, I can kind of generate graphs for that, and I have done that in the past. But that then gets a rather long talk, and so I skipped that this time. But yes, I do have the data on the regions, and I can basically generate a graph of skills by region, for example. I can do that. I do only have candidate data. I do not know what companies in industry on specific continents or countries are looking for. This is also a very good question. And I agree with that there is, of course, this whole developer setup and usability with code that comes. And yeah, that's actually good. I think I would like to also have this like in the skills covered, but yeah, this is like how to express it, how to find a name for this. And so, and I understand that, that you're mostly missing in candidates is an interest and experience in meta aspects of the software development lifecycle, how to build stable yet extensible interfaces, APIs, and very maintainable code. And I think this is like really difficult to cover in such a form. But that's of course something you can ask for, and also kind of see like if let me think about on how to integrate it in the skills. I'll probably get around it, but right now I agree with that it would be interesting to know if people also have experience with DevOps and API design, and maybe that's already like 2 good keywords to add to the skill set, which helps people find out more on the candidates they have in front. And with that, let me continue back to the slides. I quickly want to go through the submission model. Candidates use a form to choose the employers, and then this creates an application state. Employers also can basically use the filtered search to create an application state. I do not have like a direct back channel to the candidates, because while I do have an internal state for candidates, which can be applied from the employer's side, my experience in the last years is that this is not really used. And I don't want to force like my tooling on companies. Companies have their own internal setup, and they usually are very happy when they receive the candidate email with the CV attached. That's fair game for most companies. Some companies have a different setup that is basically that you see the link to their portal to submit it there, which is an extra step, and the way they receive candidates, but they of course will filter out those candidates that are not as much interested to submit to company Y in the Y portal and create an account there and do all the things that you need to do to submit for that company. And that is completely their choice. That is something which came as feedback from employers, and I've implemented it, and that's covered. But and also I had the case that like one company currently is not listed because they filled their positions and they don't want to be listed if they don't have positions, which is understandable. And this CV and submission form basically creates a profile which covers the skills, the field of work, the region, or just continents. I also collect the country where you're from, but I don't filter on that. That would be a bit of an overkill. And the years of experience. And companies may filter or search on these. And the filter is actually, you can set this also as a visibility filter. Like your company is using Qt and you do not want to see or be visible to candidates that do not use Qt. You can set that Qt is mandatory. You can choose a range of things which then are either all mandatory or partly mandatory. Like, for example, if you want or are specifically looking for candidates with an experience in API design or something, that would be a good feedback, which we just got. Thank you for that. Where you could set a filter on, and then you only get candidates which are choosing this as a skill. But of course, the downside of that is that some companies overdo this and then wonder why they do not receive any CVs, right? Because not everyone chooses this, and some candidates will be rather critical of choosing such a skill, which is the downside of having like too many skills or skills which are more like in the maybe something would make sense in that to filter for that, but then you might end up with having less candidates for stuff which is not like very common. And for the community, we do get a better hiring. We get less use of recruiters and headhunters from agencies, which just spam everyone with job offers, which right now is not so much the case, but I guess it's still happening. And I do get the funding which I need to run the event, right? This is not my free time. It's not a hobby. And I try to integrate employers with this event into the platform which I have built over the last more than 10 years now. And it's still my goal. And LinkedIn just last week, 2 Sundays ago, LinkedIn went over the 40,000. So Meeting C++ is growing a lot still. And there's a lot of C++ devs out there. And from the numbers, we saw that right now, about 47% of the devs I can reach are working for an employer which has currently open positions. So I hope that some of them will be with us in 2 weeks to join the job fair, and we'll have fun for 3 hours and conversations about jobs, C++. And often during those talks, a lot of tables evolve, by the way, around topics like API design. How do you use certain features? How do you, keep your code maintainable, and pair programming and other things? But it's completely up to the companies what they do on the table. So sometimes you have devs talking to devs, sometimes it's recruiters talking with devs, and so it's completely a different experience from table to table often. And with that, thank you for listening. I'll be looking again in the chat if you have any questions. Also for YouTube, if you have any questions, just put it in the chat, in the comments. I mean, there's no chat on YouTube. And if you have, contact me on LinkedIn, write me an email. jobfair.mediacp.com leads to the website where you can sign up as an employer. And March 12th and 13th are the dates for the job fair. And so if there's any more questions, I happily can answer them. There's a comment on languages you speak, as in German, English, or something. Yes, but for now, I don't want to put that into the tooling because it's just too much. And I think that for most companies that are hiring, they also have English-speaking teams, or some of the German companies have chosen to restrict their reach to Europe, which I also understand. Smaller companies hiring here might just only be visible for European candidates. If you see this after we have been live, I can still answer the questions in the comments, and I usually do. Also, there will be YouTube. This will be on YouTube probably by tomorrow. And send me a message on LinkedIn, contact me if you're an employer. That is also a good thing, because that's one of the main goals right now is, again, to find companies which join this event, and some companies might join it again. That has actually happened, that we had multiple companies join it over the years for a few times. So we'll see what happens. And with that, I hope to see you in 2 weeks at the Meeting C++ Online Job Fair.